welcome back. We are hitting our part 4 of our series. To recap what we did last week, we had done this red violet and we'd only done one layer. So here's where we're going to start today. I'm going to take a peek at where we're at and if we need to adjust our red violet by adding a second layer, or if we're happy with where we're at. Right now, you can see that baby's starting to really develop some coloring as you compare it next to the flange. I think I'm gonna do another layer, but here's where it gets kind of fun. You don't necessarily have to do your layers, like all your texture layers and then all your model layers and then do your blushing and your details and you're done. I intermix the layers so it creates more of an in-depth skin layers where you got bits and pieces of colors and textures and model coming through on multiple layers versus just a little bit. We're gonna do the second layer of our red violet, but we're gonna do it with a model. So that means we're gonna pull out our model sponge and we're gonna make up some color. All right, here we go. We are going to mix up a little bit more of that red violet. Refresh your memory. We are going to use equal parts of both of our red and our blue as our base. I'm going to use my amazing squeegee and I'm super excited because I have sourced out these squeegees. They're similar to this one, about the same size, without the paint, which will be amazing because you don't have to worry about what happened to me. Because of the thinner, it actually wore off the blue paint and went down to the raw wood. And I couldn't figure out where the blue was coming from. And here it was me holding my squeegee and mixing and having that thinner constantly wiping on this portion. And here is getting blue everywhere and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Guess what? I figured it out. So now that it's worn away, I'm not worried about it. I am going to have these available on our website for purchase. I will put the link in the videos when it comes in. I'm going to wait until it gets here because it's still en route. But anyways, I'm really excited about that. You'll love them. So let's pick up about, I'm going to do like a size of a pea, about yay, if you can see. It's actually probably a little bit more. Well, a smushed pea. Now, before you obviously pick up your blue, you're going to want to get rid of this red. So if you don't want to waste your product by wiping it off on a paper towel, because that will add up over time, I am very conscientious about wasting paint. So I will take my red lovely brush that I use for mixing and I'm just going to wipe it off on my red so I get a majority of it off. And then once I get it on there, I can mix it up in my washes. If you haven't seen my earlier videos, basically I just use my washes, which you can only use if you're using the thinner alone with the Genesis. I'm not sure, I haven't played with the Irresistibles on whether or not we can do a thin enough wash where we icnay the liquid thin all together. We'll play with that together a little bit later on the road. However, I can wipe off that brush in my washes that I've created, and if those washes get too pigmented, I just thin them out even more or add a little bit of my Flesh OA or your white, titanium white, or whatever you want to do. Back to what we're talking about. Now, move that out of the way. So we got about the size of a pea. For our blue, we're going to do about the same amount, okay? Go a little bit more. I always get nervous. You can always add more, but it's hard to take away once you do that. I'm just gonna set that up here for a minute. And then I'm gonna grab our liquid thin and you're gonna do equal amounts. So I'm gonna do probably about like a pea and a half. It's about a pea and a half to start off with, okay? Actually, I'm gonna say that the pigment was a little less than the size of a pea. You got the gist of it though. You can see where we're coming from. So mix that up really, really well. And once you think you've mixed it up enough, mix it up a little bit more. can see how it's created that really nice, rich, kind of a darker red. We want to tone that down a little bit. So how do you tone down the red if it gets too dark in that manner? We're going to add a little bit of our blue. And when I mean a little, I mean very, very little. So give me just a second. I had to check my ovens. All right. I'm gonna go about that much just to start off with and see how that looks. Mixing. It's still a little bit too red. I want to add a little more blue. Just grab it off and that probably is going to be too much, but we'll take a gander and see what we think. That's getting closer. And then because we added more pigment, I'm just going to add a couple drops of our liquid thin. There we go. Looking good. Gotta go check my ovens. Hang on. I'm thinking, well, do I want a little bit more blue? Oh, there's a little more on my squeegee. That'll make all the difference in the world. Just gonna roll that off of my squeegee. There we go. I think that actually looks pretty darn good to me. Get these put away. Now, referring back to what we talked about with our thinner and how thick or how thin you should mix your pigment. Remember, if you're having a hard time, use a glass dish. It works really nicely. If that pigment stays suspended, it's going to be way too thick and it's not going to bake correctly and you're going to have issues. I did about 5 drops of my thinner. Basically, if you're at home and you have no idea what you're doing, think of it as equal amounts of your pigment to liquid thin plus maybe another drop or two. And then you're gonna do equal amounts of thinner to that. So that will help your paint be nice and translucent, yet it'll be thin enough. So you can see it's running a little bit, but not enough. I'm going to do a little bit more. So that would be closer to our 1-to-1 ratio to our overall pigment and liquid thin. Does that make sense? I hope. I have been crazy busy working on babies for the West Coast Doll Show. If you don't pay attention and you flick your color and then you pick up a kit, that's a big no-no. Sorry about that. Okay, I think that's gonna be good. Let's take a test. Oh yeah, that's good. See how it runs really nicely, but it leaves it behind? Maybe one more drop. Oops. Well, we got 2. If you end up adding too much thinner, it's not a big deal. Your mixture just will be a little bit more of a thinner consistency, a little bit more translucent. So worst case scenario, you'll have to do an extra layer if you choose to. Oh yeah, perfect. I like that. All right, now I'm gonna get my squeegee all cleaned up. Give me just a second, I gotta check on my ovens. All right, now let's talk about texture and model and all that fun stuff. Like I said before, you don't have to do all of your texture rounds first and then go into all of your model rounds and then go into your blushing and then go into your details. I do not have a specific set order of what type of layer I'm putting down when. I always base it off of what does the kit currently look like. What undertones is it casting and what do I want to see more of or see less of? So for this guy, I really like where he's at, but I do want to kind of give him a little extra boost. And I personally want to do it because once I see a little bit more of that vivid texture or that vivid model, it really makes me a little bit more energized and kind of keeps me going. I really like seeing that progress. So I'm going to add model layer this time, but the difference is that our pigment is not going to be as intense as you could do with model. Usually model is a little bit more of a higher pigment versus your wash, but less than like a blush would be. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Now with our sponges, you can see here I've got a few different kinds. I've got my texture sponge, and then I have a couple of different model sponges that I have created, which we'll make some sponges doing like a mini tutorial later on. With these ones, I think what I want to do is I want to use this one. This is going to produce more of a in-between texture and model appearance versus this one. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the difference, this one's going to have a little bit of your smaller holes mixed with the larger holes, so that the remaining surface area is going to be more broken. Where if you look at this one, because we have larger holes, it's going to create the surface area looking more veiny, and that's what model appears to look like. It's more of a veiny appearance versus a bumpy or textured appearance. So I don't want so much as veins or that real but defined model. I want it in between. So I'm going to use my sponge that I've got a mixture of the larger and smaller holes so that it creates that perfect amount. I'll show you my palette real quick. This is how I set up my palette for when I'm painting. It is consistent, it's organized, and I don't have to worry about anything. My under brushes are all my mixing brushes, where my top mop brushes are usually more for application. So I'm gonna grab my purple, no, I'm gonna use my red. Now remember, I have some pigment left on this, so if you're not sure if there is too much pigment on here, you can always just dip it in your thinner first and mix it and then apply it to your mix, or you can clean it off if you wanted to. Like I keep one of my my little brush cleaner handies in case I need to clean something off and change that out, or you can just dip it right into your wash. I am going to dip it in my wash, and you can only do this, like I said before, with Genesis, because I haven't officially tested or talked to Esther about it, whether or not it works well with this guy. All right, that is such a beautiful, perfect amount of pigment. It's nice and translucent. It's soft, red violet, but enough. Gotta check my ovens. How many times do you think I say I gotta check my ovens? I do it a lot. In case you forgot, or you didn't see the other videos, or you skipped ahead, whatever you want to do. I am taking my mixing brush and I'm lightly almost painting the surface of my sponge. So I don't need a lot. I just want to have a little bit. You're not like pouncing it into your mixture. You're just going to paint it very lightly. Yeah. And I always start at the back, just in case if something was a little bit too bold, I can easily adjust it. And it's not quite so vivid or stand out at all because it's going to be hidden by the hair. And I'm going to do this lovely motion. There's my oven. Okay. And I don't have to worry about pulling it out right away, so that's okay. So you can see it's a little vivid, little bold, and that's okay because I'm going to do that dry brushing on top of that to soften it even more. And I'm going to do about halfway up the head, and then it will be good. See how we have not overlapped the sponge? Last time when we were using our texture sponges, we actually were doing the twisting motion while almost overlapping the previous stamp that you applied, so that way your texture was going to be a lot more condensed, so it appears more softer and less defined. I want it to have a little bit more of a muddled or kind of a blotchy effect to it, yet still have a nice bold effect. So that's where I do a little bit more random and have a little bit more spacing between my sponge, so that way it's going to have that appearance a lot quicker. Then we're going to take our lovely little dry brush, and this one, like I said before, is the Eco Tools. I think this is a foundation brush. I will have to double check. I can't remember the name, but I will try to find it and put it in the description or whatever. And then you're going to pounce this out. And like I said, I'm only going to do the back first, pouncing really well, because we want it to be soft, real soft edges, and have more of that blotchiness, but more of a defined blotchiness. So it's not quite a model, not quite a texture. It's kind of a in between. And Because this paint has not been baked, you can pounce it until it's at the appearance that you like. Yes, that pigment will move around. It's not going to stay condensed in that one spot and, oh shoot, I use way too much over here and none over here. Just keep pouncing it with your dry brush, because that color is still creamy and sitting on the surface. It hasn't baked onto the vinyl. So you can move that pigment around. And if you still are not happy with it and you feel it's too bold, you can either do a second application to soften it out a little bit, or go over it with a little bit of thinner on a dry brush and just kind of pounce it out a little bit. That will remove a little bit of that pigment without taking everything off. But I really like that. So you can see how nice it is. It's not a defined model, it's not a defined texture. It's a perfect in between. I like it a lot. All right, then we're going to paint our sponge just a little bit, and I'm going to use what's remaining on my brush. I'm not going to load it up because there should be plenty on my brush, and I don't want to have it too bold for around the face. Now, I have heard many people say there is no model on the face. Don't do the hands, like the palms of the hands, the bottoms of the feet, and in the face when you're using model. I am the type of person that I don't follow the rules when it comes to art. I do what works for me and what I like to see and what my interpretation is. So just for an example, when I look at my grandson, his whole body was modeled. I saw it more vividly when he was a little bit older, maybe like a few weeks old, versus like when he was first born. When he was first born, the first thing that everybody said is, oh my gosh, he looks like a doll that needs more paint. He was so porcelain white without a single flaw to the skin or blemish or anything. It looked fake. And so we were all laughing about, it looks fake. All right. So we've got the back done. I'm going to go through and I'm going to continue on with the top, just doing that random connection with our stamping. If you want to go closer together, go for it. If you want to keep it further apart, keep it further apart. And then I like to go over the ears, over everything, and then adjust those areas with a dry brush or a different brush to blend it a little bit more softly. You can see I'm kind of going behind the ears there. And then I'm going to just blend that a little bit, blending that top. It's looking good. Again, thank you, Esther, for sponsoring today's video and sharing all of your amazing knowledge and your products with us. It's a lot of fun creating these dolls, and it's a lot more fun when you get to try new things. All right, so that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna check behind the ear. Just gonna soften that out a little bit behind the ear there. Using the same sponge because I don't want to load it up. I want it to be even softer as we encroach in on the eyes, nose, and the lips. By not adding more pigment to your sponge, it'll be very faint as it gets closer in. So I'm going to make like a circular pattern as I'm bringing it around the face. And I'm going to go a little bit closer together with the stamping, just so that way it's not quite defined, but it's not defined. Going over the bridge of the nose, kind of doing that rocking motion over the eyes, any of those raised areas, just do a rocking motion like one time and that'll be enough. See how cute that is? Oh, I love it. I love it so much. I was going back and watching some of the videos to double check what I've shared with you, what information I need to talk about, so on and so forth. And I noticed that I repeat a lot of the information more than once, so I apologize if it gets redundant, but I do want to make sure that for those of you that haven't seen what we're doing or have skipped ahead or just happen to stumble on us, you can get that information. So bear with me. All right, that is beautiful. So see how nicely it just softly blended in on the face? It's a little bit more vivid through the back here, and that is perfect. Maybe a little bit more on the neck than I probably am crazy about, but remember, once it bakes, it does fade a little bit, so it's gonna be just right. Now what you can do is this step again is gonna be up to you whether or not you wanna do. I'm gonna take this same pigment and I'm gonna pick it up with my liner brush, and I'm gonna go over some areas that I wanna accentuate. So let me get my brush. I'm gonna hit those creases with our fine liner brush, and you'll notice how much more that it'll help that kit come to life. Do I do creases every single time where you only have to do creases once and be done with it, or maybe twice? Not necessarily. Sometimes I choose to do a crease color or darker color of my choosing or making right off the bat. Sometimes I will do it a little bit softer and lighter and build them up slowly. It's just a personal preference on what you want to accomplish, what you want to see your overall results to look like. And when I do the creases, I want them to be really soft, but I'm really excited and I don't want this video to run too long. So I'm going to just do some shortcuts to make it go a little bit faster, just to give you the gist of how to use the irresistibles. Now, when you're doing the creases, the other thing you want to keep in mind is that if you don't work it into the creases really well, what's going to happen is you're going to have the creases start looking dirty. So you can do a couple of different things. You can take your dry brush and you can just kind of press it in and work it in that way. What I like to do when I'm working with the face, you're going to put your hand literally inside the head to where you feel that opening of the eye. You're going to press that out as you're pressing in your color. So that way you can make sure that you get it worked into the crease really well, but it stays really soft. Does that make sense? I'm going to do the other eye here. And you can go back and forth by rubbing it if you want, but that will take away some of that pigment too quickly, and I don't want to necessarily do that. So I just do more of a tapping motion. Now you can see how soft and nice that brought those creases to life even more so. Pressing from the inside out, doing the same thing with the nose that we did with the eyes. And I don't necessarily do this when I'm kind of doing more of a natural crease where we are kind of letting them build up on their own and just hitting them with the washes once in a while when you're doing your painting. But when you're doing a bold crease color or a highly pigmented color of your choosing, you want to make sure that it's worked in good. Because especially if you're only going to do one application, that will make a difference in the overall look in the end. The other fun thing about using darker pigments right off the bat is that you can create different creases or different features, I should say, on your baby that weren't there originally. So if you wanted to have this little peanut look like it's got a little bit of a dimple, you could go in and just create a little dimple in through here. And as you get working, it will soften up and disappear under those layers. So I'm going to just tap out that dimple very lightly, hitting the edges. You want it to almost disappear, and that's just an example of what you can do. You're kind of doing the same concept as if you were doing blemishes. You're tapping that color on and you're hitting the edges of the color, so that way the center of your mark is going to have more of a higher concentration of the pigment where it gets more softer and kind of feathers out around the perimeter or the edges of that pigment. That's basically the same concept if you were doing little dimples or other little features. If you wanted to put little furrows like wrinkles in the forehead, you could do some little wrinkles in through here and slowly build those up as well. I'm not necessarily going to do that, so I'm going to wipe those ones off. I'm going to hit the lips. I'm going to go in from the edges, from corner to corner, going back and forth. I'm going to go in and I'm going to work it in just a little bit. And this is, I'm going to do more of a rubbing because it's a little bit deeper of a crease, so it's hard to get in there. There we go. And then I'm going to hit the creases on the lip itself. You don't necessarily have to do this. You can if you want to, or you can skip it all together. Now, I just finished doing the lips on a different sculpt, and that one didn't have any wrinkles on the lips, and I wanted to create that appearance because we're going to go in and do a technique with the lip itself to create more of a 3D kind of a blister effect with my other baby that I'm working on, which we can do with this one as well. But it didn't have any creases, so I went in with a darker pigment and created the appearance of those creases. Let me show you just for an example. So this is Manuel. You can see here, he didn't really have any creases on the lips, but I want to create more of that blistery effect where it's a little bit more puffy. In order to do that, I basically used this color and just went very lightly, almost like a feather touch over the areas where I wanted to see the creases, and that brought that out. And him, now he has a little dimple in his chin, so I'm accentuating that and drawing your eye deeper into that shadow so it creates depth when you're using those dark colors. So we can see this little peanut. We could do the chin the same way. I think I kind of like that. That's actually really cute. I'm gonna move on to doing the ears. With the ears, I like to take my pinky, stabilize myself by kind of holding the head still and pushing with my fingers on the inside of the head towards this hand. That'll keep my head still and allow me to be able to do those creases without going crazy. And I'm gonna go in just from the edge all the way up, just that portion. And you can do like all your creases first and then go back and blend them, or you can do it as you go, whatever you want to do. It's your personal preference. I just wanted to hit that a little bit, and you can see how much I'm using. It's a very, very fine amount. I'm gonna hit this area. I forgot the technical name for this part of the ear. I'll have to look that up. Sue Ellen does such a great job with that, but she's a really great one for learning like the technical names and what have you. And I hit behind the ears. And I wanna use a bigger brush. And this one, I'm gonna go back and forth real soft. I just want to softly make sure I've got a nice crease in through there. You can see how soft it is. Then we're going to hit the top of the ear, bringing that around the forward to the front. It's a little bit softer through there. Now I want to take a little bit wider of a brush. So this one, I don't know what the name of it is, honestly. It's probably like an 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch wide, whichever brush is comfortable for you. And I'm gonna go inside the ear and hit the inside portion of the vinyl that's not really seen, but will create more depth and bring that ear to life a little bit more. So we're just going the edges in through here. See through here. And then I'm going to go inside the deepest portion of the ear. I'm not sure if I like the open ears or not. I do like how it's working out on a couple of the other kits. It's just an odd appearance for me. But I do like it, but I'm not sure. What are your guys' thoughts? Would you say open ears, no open ears? I like how it does give a little bit more depth more fast. I'm doing a tapping motion just on the hollow of the ear through here, and I'm softly blending that up because I want to hit those edges of the ear as well. I'm not doing the whole ear, I'm just doing those edges. And then I'm using a dry brush, pressing that a little bit. Okay, that looks good. Same thing, gonna stabilize my painting hand. Gonna bring that, oh, I'm using the wrong brush, but that's okay. You can use your fine liner brush. You can see how it just got a little bit too thick through there. So I'll just use my dry brush and I'm gonna pull that out a little bit. I'm gonna go right in through here. That's better. And then we're going to soften that out. I'm gonna go right around the crease of the ear through here. And pressing that out, and then I'm going to get my wider brush to go into more of the deeper areas, hitting the inside portion of the vinyl so nothing is left unpainted. Tap, tap, tap. And then I'm going to go right in this point here. I go up to the edge, but not over the edge with this color. And then I'm gonna use my brush and I'm gonna pat that out. That looks good. I think I wanna add a little bit more on this side. There we go. I think I like that better. Softens that edge just a tad more. I'm going to use a little bit bigger brush, not quite as small as my liner brush that looks like this. You can kind of see how small those bristles are, or how narrow that tip is. I want to go just a little bigger. I'm going to go with something a little bit more like this, and I'm going to hit those creases underneath the chin. Because it's not really a crease, it's more of like just a little bit of a wrinkle. So you want to create some depth there, but you don't want it to be really a crease. So you're doing more shading, I guess would be the technical name or process for it. Hit the corner there. Hit this. I see another one. I'm gonna go in with my more of a narrow brush. There's a crease right behind the ear here. Let me hit that. All right, so that looks pretty good. Did I do the nostrils? I did not do the nostrils. So with the nostrils, you're gonna use more of an angled brush, and we're gonna tap that paint very lightly onto your brush. And you're tapping inside the nostril, just like you did the ear. Doing as little or as much as you need. Oops. And if it gets on the outside, no big deal. I just use my dry brush. Do a little bit more on this one. Oops, trying to remember. Don't get my hand in the way. It's so hard for you to see the nostril point. Oops. Hitting all the surfaces of that inside portion of the nose. And that's what I forgot. I forgot right through here. And then underneath the nose. Okay. I'm pretty happy with that. That looks good. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the arms and the legs the same way, just to give you guys an example of what we're doing. You can see by when we're mixing our colors in smaller batches, they go further, and you are able to have just a slight variation, because it's not going to be the exact color every single time you mix color. It'll have a slightly different color. Yes, we're going for red violet for both of these, so maybe I went a little bit too much with the blue and it got more of a purpley red violet. That's okay, not a big deal. This one we use a little bit less of the blue, so it has a little bit more of that magenta tone. Hopefully this makes sense for you guys. So I did more of a textured sponge with these ones, the first three, and then this one I did more of the mottle slash texture. It's where it's got the combination of the small and the larger holes, and then you got to control how much you want to see based upon how far or how close together you're doing your stamping. All right, for you guys at home, it's really going to be the same process that we just did with the head, but on the arms and the legs. I'm going to go over those creases. I'm going to see how long this video runs, and if it's getting a little long, I might just cut this portion out and let you guys do that portion at home on your own, because it's pretty self-explanatory, but maybe I will add a couple of little extra tidbits of information. So bear with me. All right, guys, so it was getting a little bit on the longer side, and just for the sake of time, I decided I'm going to cut this a little bit short. But before I do so, I want to share, like I said, a little bit of information to think about while you are doing your arms and your legs. When I'm doing the creasing for the arms and the legs, not only will I do the creasing and blending those out just like we did on the head, I will hit the fingertips as well. You can already see that I have taken my excess pigment that I had left and I had transferred into my welt. So I'm not going to worry about having to mix anything or do anything special. I can pick it up right out of this well, and I'm using a little bit more of that wider brush. This is that one that's about 1/8 to 1/4 inch. And when you're doing these guys, I'm going to literally paint those fingertips. I always do this multiple times because fingertips seem like they always have the hardest time allowing that paint to sit on the surface for whatever reason. I don't have a great explanation for that, unfortunately. I've just found that over time, whenever I've painted the hands or the feet, the very tips of the fingers or the toes are always the hardest to take that paint. So I will hit those digits on both the hands and the toes when I'm doing the creasing on the limbs. Once you get done with doing the fingertips and your creasing and you blended it out, that's when you're going to want to bake it. You want to make sure that your oven is preheated, again, to 265 degrees. Keep that oven thermometer in your oven to maintain the right temperature, and monitor it. Don't walk away from it. Once you have baked your kit, and you'll bake that usually at 10 minutes. You can go 9 to 10 minutes, but I'd rather err on the longer side so that I can make sure that it's cured. So I'm going to bake that at 10 minutes. And once that's done, we're going to fully let that cool, and we'll move on to the next step. So stay tuned for our next video to come out. I so appreciate all of you guys and your support and your comments and your feedback and all of the positive, uplifting likes and shares and all that fun stuff. So make sure you continue to do so. Certainly helps keep me motivated to continue making these videos for you. If you haven't done so already, make sure that you like and subscribe. Hit the little bell so that you get notified when I upload those next videos. Before I head out, just to give you a refresher, we have done one layer of our texture using our red color, 2 layers of texture with our yellow, 1 layer of our texture doing a red violet, and 1 layer of our remixed red violet, so it's a slight variation in color, but this time using our mottle slash texture sponge and controlling the spacing. So that's where you should be at by now. And next week, we're going to move on to our next layer. Thanks again for watching, you guys. I'm having a great time, and I hope you are too, and we will see you guys all again soon. Bye-bye.